So what happens to a town when its entire reason for being just vanishes? Today we're going to head to northern France to look at the incredible story of Loos-en-Gohelle. This is a place that didn't just survive the death of its coal industry, it literally used the ashes of its past to build an amazing, sustainable future.
I mean, listen to this quote. When they closed, people said to themselves, "What is our use now?" That just hits you, right? It perfectly captures the feeling in Loos-en-Gohelle when the coal mines shut down back in the 80s. For more than 100 years, this town was coal, and when that disappeared, it wasn't just an economic problem. It was a full-blown identity crisis. I mean, what do you do when the very thing that defined you is just gone?
All right, so here's how we're going to break down their journey. We'll start with the crisis, then look at their choice to embrace their history. See how they put power back in the hands of the people? Check out the town's rebirth, and finally, see how they became a blueprint for others to follow.
Okay, so let's dive into part one. To really get this, you gotta understand that Loos-en-Gohelle wasn't just a mining town. It was a powerhouse, right in the heart of one of Europe's biggest coal mining regions. Literally everything, the whole community, was built by the mines for the mines.
So when the mines closed in the 80s, it was like a switch was flipped. The town lost its main employer overnight. But it was so much deeper than just jobs. You see, the mining companies had controlled everything. We're talking housing, healthcare, even people's free time. The whole shebang. So this town of 7,000 people was suddenly left asking itself a huge question. Without coal, who are we even?
All right, now this next part, this is where the story gets really interesting. Because Loos-en-Gohelle was at a crossroads, and the path they chose was completely different from what everyone else was doing. So the common playbook for towns in this situation was to basically try and erase the past. You know, they saw their mining history as this taboo, this thing to be forgotten. But Loos-en-Gohelle, they did the exact opposite. They decided to lean in, to embrace their history. They looked at the relics of their past, even these giant, ugly slag heaps, and decided, no, these aren't scars, these are symbols of our pride.
And this all came from their mayor at the time, a guy named Marcel Caron. His motto was simple: transform without forgetting your roots. He was convinced that you couldn't build a new identity by bulldozing the old one. And one of the very first things he did way back in '84 was to start a festival, the Gohelle Festival. It was a way for people to just come together, share their stories, celebrate that shared history, and really start rebuilding their community spirit from the ground up.
Okay, so a nice motto is great, but how do you actually turn that philosophy into action? Rebuilding a whole town is a massive undertaking. Well, their answer was revolutionary. They decided to put the power directly into the hands of the people.
They came up with this policy they called the 50-50 dispositive. And the idea was honestly simple but brilliant. Any resident could come up with an idea for a town project. If the town council liked it, they'd provide funding and technical support. But, and here's the kicker, the 50-50 part, the residents themselves had to co-manage the project. They had to be in the driver's seat. I mean, look at how simple this is. Residents propose an idea, the town helps out, and then the citizens take the lead. This completely flipped the script on the relationship between the government and the people. It was a total break from that old top-down system they had with the mining companies, where someone else always made the decisions. For the first time, people weren't just being told what was going to happen, they were the ones making it happen. A perfect example of this in action is the Mine de Soleil project. That's French for sun mine. A bunch of residents got together and said, hey, let's put solar panels all over town. And the committee wasn't made up of experts. It was just regular people, teachers, retirees, local shop owners. And they were involved in every single step, from coming up with the name and fundraising, all the way to picking the company that would install the panels.
And get this! Look at the result. By 2021, just a few years after they started, those citizen-led solar panels were generating 90% of the energy needed for all the town's public buildings. 90%! Think about that. That's not some small, symbolic gesture. That is a massive, real-world impact.
And this quote from one of the residents on the committee, Jean-Luc Mathé, just nails it. He said, "It made us become actors, not just critics. It is a much better system." He's honest, he says it takes a lot more time to work this way, but the payoff is huge. You transform people from sitting on the sidelines complaining into active players who have a real stake in their community's future. That's real ownership.
Okay, so we've seen the philosophy and the process. But after decades of doing this, what's the bottom line? What does the town actually look and feel like today? Let's take a look.
The transformation is honestly just stunning. Remember those giant slag heaps? Well, today they're green nature reserves where people go hiking and paragliding. They're buzzing with wildlife, like rare toads and falcons. The old mining headquarters? It's now an eco-park for nonprofits. The town has a green belt of car-free paths, they've planted fruit bushes for anyone to pick from, and they even have their own local currency to keep money in the community. It's incredible.
But what about the economy? I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Now, let's be clear, their unemployment rate at 13.7% is still higher than the French national average. But, and this is a huge but, look at it compared to its neighbors. It's way, way lower than other old industrial towns in the area like Lens and Roubaix. So this proves that their approach isn't just a feel-good story. It's delivering real, measurable economic results.
And it's not just about the numbers on a chart. That economic stability has helped build a really strong social fabric. This quote from a guy who moved to town and ended up on the council just says it all. He calls it a place with the spirit of a village, where everyone knows each other and says hello. It's not just a dormitory town where people come home to sleep. It's a real living community.
But this story doesn't end in Loos-en-Gohelle. Not at all. Their amazing success started to make waves, and now they're actively trying to share their blueprint with the rest of the world.
And you can really see the momentum building over the last decade. First, in 2012, the whole area gets designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a huge deal. Then, in 2015, the French government points to them and says, that's it, that's a model for change. And by 2020, they took the lead themselves, creating the Transitions Factory to teach other towns how to do what they did.
And their goal here is huge. They want to create a national game plan for development that shows you can tackle social issues and environmental issues at the very same time. And this is so important, especially in France, which saw the massive Yellow Vests protests, a backlash against climate policies that people felt were unfair. What Loos-en-Gohelle proves is that if you actually involve citizens in the process, if you bring them along for the ride, you can have a transition that's fair, inclusive, and actually works.
Which brings us to our final thought. The story of Loos-en-Gohelle is so powerful because it shows that a community's biggest challenges, even its deepest industrial scars, can be flipped and turned into its greatest strengths. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? If a small coal town can do that, what parts of our own community's past, the parts we might want to pave over and forget, could actually be the very foundation for building a better, more sustainable future?